Hey everybody, and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program RP-0. This is our Twitch recap episode from last Sunday's live show, where we were touching back again on biggest Perseus, perhaps, or Quasimodo. However, we haven't given it an official name, so anything will do. This is the quick 5-minute version of something I threw together using the command pod and then a 10 Kerbal can, which I think if it's got room for 10 Kerbals, it will probably suffice quite well to give 6 Kerbals enough room to stretch around and exercise and stay fit and serve as a suitable living quarters for extended missions. To Venus, Mars, and points beyond. So we're just trying to figure out a good setup for this kind of layout. We're trying to get into something a little more conical because it'll be much more stable during reentry than the kind of beer can-esque model that we had going on for the last 2 or 3 builds of this spacecraft. So since we don't need the Mark II spaceplane crew cabins anymore, we've kind of got some sides cleared up, but we also need to keep that door on the habitat module thing clear or exposed so that Kerbals can come and go from there as they please. So we're trying to figure out what exactly to do with these other 2 sides and just kind of throwing parts at it to see what sticks. We have yet to make a connected living space compliant setup for that habitat module, but it really ought to be connected living space compliant considering the role it kind of fills within the space program itself. So with a lot of help from the chat, we were trying to figure out what to do with these 2 open sides. Basically, we just need them for fuel tanks. More so than anything else, and trying to find a part that will fit in this rather awkward space. Really, my gut was to go with the procedural tank, but I think we can actually make more effective use of the space if we use the more Mark II spaceplane parts. Namely, like this tank here actually kind of fills the gap pretty well. It's still a little gappy on the sides, but this is still just a prototype build. We're kind of spitballing at a design. We don't have anything quite finalized just yet. We do just kind of want to figure out the basics. Maybe we'll land on something we're a little happier with. Maybe we won't, but we'll spend a good amount of time trying to figure that out because, well, it's important that your space program be well represented. So we're going to try to fill these gaps here with landing legs as soon as I can get things sorted out for myself. As far as placement, I think if we scale them up to 150%, 200% looked way too big. I'm trying to remember now. It's been quite a while. But we'll try to get them into position and see if we can't get an angle here that gets them below the heat shield, which would be nice to see. And also in an area that kind of covers up that little gap where we would like it to not be quite so exposed. It's it's not easy, but yeah, that's at 200%, and that's a little ridiculous. So we're going to size these down to about 150 or so, and then get them tucked in just a bit and try to adjust their angle out so they don't clip into things while deployed. While stowed, not really my biggest concern, but yeah, like I said, this is just a prototype. We're still kind of spitballing, trying to figure a bunch of stuff out, but we do need to make sure the Kerbals can move around freely, so we're going to get this outside for a very quick test run. Bounce. Hey, the landing leg's held. That's good. Alright, EVA. Is that ladder gap going to kill us? Nope. Works. Board. We'll make sure he can get back out. EVA. Excellent. We can exit the spacecraft. Board. I don't think we have tweak scale configs for this thing. Parts are not in the same space of boarding transfer. They should, absolutely they should have connected living space. That's what I'm looking for. And back now into the VAB, we'll just do a quick check over of our parts. I did not believe that thing was CLS compliant, but it either should or will be, regardless, because it both should and can be with a minor tweak to the configuration. Anyway, we're going to figure out some of the form and polish to this thing. Of course, we'll need the crew tube at the nose, which is always just a little awkward because it won't quite scale down to the right size. But on top of that, we will have our Apollo docking port, and we'll size it to fit. We also need to change the flag, because certain people probably don't want to be associated with such a disastrous project. And next step will be to add RCS ports for docking and control. Of course, this thing, should it go into service, will have to dock with many stations, hopefully a Venus station, should it ever actually successfully deploy, and Harmonia station, or what remains of it by the time this thing goes into service. We did also have new configs for the remote guidance units. We'll be testing those out soon. And now it's time to build out the engine nacelles. So again, with a whole lot of help from the chat, and we've also figured out that you really do not want to put robotic parts on or attached to procedural parts, because wonky, terrible, bad things tend to happen every time you do. So we're going to try to structure these in the fold-out manner that I think we did a little bit with last episode, maybe towards the very end. But anyway, I think we can get the engine nacelles to fold into the bay and then rotate 180 degrees so that they are facing down, and so that the engine bells are below the meat of the craft itself. We just need to get our hinges and our pneumatics figured out. We also need very strong attachment points for all of this stuff. For reasons that are obvious, we're going to be putting a lot of thrust through those engines. I know it's probably either 6 or 8 AJ10 118Ks, but they still give kind of a kick, and we would like to not shear everything off when we light the engines every time. We did have some problems with engine bounce on the initial build of this prototype spacecraft. It is something we would definitely like to avoid, although it does get a little interesting when you're dealing with so many robotic parts that I just don't think have the node strength to do what I really want them to do for this purpose, which is interesting enough. But we're going to go ahead and build out a single engine nacelle and then just copy it over. Basically 4 AJ10 118Ks, make sure they're set up appropriately and nicely tucked in so that they will hopefully fit into this bay. Remove it, let it copy over. There we go. Now we have 2 of them. And now we can start playing around with our robotic parts. We would like them to start at this place on the hinge, or at least this is how they will be when they are tucked in. We do have the attachment ports are a little off, which is causing some very interesting issues with our symmetry, but that is almost how they will be in their deployed state. We need to move the robotic part out, and of course moving it and trying to copy it to a procedural tank has resulted in some absurd wonkiness. So we need to reset all the robotic things back to 0 and then rotate them into position, and hopefully they'll actually stay where they need to be. Yeah, now we have the hinge actually facing the way it needs, or not the hinge, the telescopic piston is doing what it's supposed to do. I mean, for the most part. But I think we don't quite have the hinge set right where we need it, and we would like to tuck this in as much as possible. We're also going to have to rotate the engines out a little bit because the hinge will only go to 180 degrees. It will not extend past that, which if we're going to have the pneumatic cylinder at this angle, we of course will need it to be. I think 125 or some odd degrees is what I kind of eyeballing it looked like. Yeah, that's not going to work. I would like them to face straight aft so that we don't have a bunch of cosine losses when burning the engines, although at maybe 25 degrees or so, they're really not quite that bad. But if we can center them and still get them to tuck cleanly into the bays, which, oh, we're so close, just a little bit of clipping through, we're just going to tuck the engine nacelle down onto the mount plate a little further, and there we go. They fold out cleanly. They are symmetrical, if not just a little weird looking, but for the most part it works. We're going to attach some of these very beefy thruster ports. They kind of fire down at an angle, so those will also help us provide ullage. We will probably have to add some for much better roll control later on, and I accidentally clicked the wrong thing. So the pneumatic part reset itself within the procedural tank, which never attach a robotic part to a procedural tank. That's the lesson for today, everyone. Just so never attach anything you don't need to a procedural tank. And we'll just tuck some solar panels on here because it's a pretty nice place for them, even though I know obviously they're clipping into stuff when they are folded into the bay, but prototype. It's just a prototype. So now we need to fill out our fuel tanks full of fuel and maybe get some life support down in this bottom tank. I think we're just going to do a very initial low yield run for life support starting out. We're actually going to shorten the fuel by quite a bit for this initial run and then get some parachutes on it. We'll just copy over a whole bunch for the time being. Move those so that they're not blocking the window, and then get 2 primaries out here on these fuel tanks. And we'll give it a good test descent. There's really no point in continuing any of the project if the silly thing won't survive reentry, and that's really the very first step in creating this vehicle, is making sure that it can safely return the crew home. So we'll start getting our parachute configuration set up. We get mass warnings for every single one, but the mass it is at now is not the mass I intended to have it at when we're landing. I suspect we will have much less fuel and therefore much less mass. And before I forget, we should probably give it its own comms just cuz, and then get our simulation set up. We do want to start in orbit this time, and then we'll hit simulate eventually. We do need to add life support, preferably here to the bottom tank, because that's hopefully what we'll have a lot more of than fuel on our return to Earth, where we'll be aero capturing and then making our eventual descent through the atmosphere, maybe on a second or even a third pass. Anyway, we're ready to do the simulation now, so I'm going to turn you over to old me. All right. First things first, let's open our cargo bays, make sure our engines work so that we can deorbit. Let's see how our power draw looks. Turn SAS on, turn RCS on. Did I not configure these top ports? Because they do not appear to be firing. Well, that works. Those work. So far, so good. Cannot deploy while stowed. You're kidding me, right? Cannot deploy while stowed. That's awesome. Four times PTW test type. Are those top ports firing? Yeah, they are. Okay, good. I thought they were. Staging would have been a good thing to adjust for. All the ullaging kind of works. Ignition? Very little bounce there. That's fantastic. Shut down. Yeah, a lot of bounce. A whole lot of bounce. Extend, extend, extend. No. Alright, we're going to try another basic method of switching craft. Board. Let's see if that works. Extend. Nope, still stowed. Pilot, engineer, EVA. I know it's... Whoa! Okay, you do you, buddy. Whatever. That's fine. Extend. Really? They're still stowed, huh? Alright. And Manny does not like interacting with any of that stuff. What? Okay, that's very interesting. Huh. Okay, we're gonna stop that right now. What in the hell? We're gonna switch camera mode to free since maybe us being on a suborbital trajectory has something to do with it. Board. That's super interesting. Alright, 138 tons, so this is going to be... Yeah, probably. He's absolutely very drunk. PTW? The whole agency is drunk. Yeah, fair. I might be a little drunk because I don't know what PTW, physical time warp. Gotcha. Do we want it under thrust or... Yeah, let's we're just gonna... Oh yeah, I think we're right at the edge where the camera switch happens, so any little change in velocity was making the camera change go crazy, because our periapsis is right at 30 kilometers. So probably not a whole lot of physics warping going to happen while these engines are flying. We should have brought some KIS struts to see if strutting them down would solve that. But, yeah, 1x physical warp works a little bit. 2x not so much. Good news is it turns really well. Yeah, do that. Check the map mode, please. Oh, yeah. Hey, we got a dot. We are our own control station. Strut ambitious. We have time. Let's see if it gets back down, and if not, then we know, and we can just abandon this dumb thing, and we'll send two of the big Artemis craft instead of a Perseus, because we don't have a suitable habitat for Perseus, but we do have a suitable habitat for Artemis. So anytime we want 6 crew, we're just going to have to dispatch 2 Artemis craft, which we do have. We got plenty of money, we can build them, everything will be fine. We just want to put this sumbitch under some load. Yeah, 19 kilometers. Let's bring it in harsh. No, this will work. It's Quasimodo and you will fear it. I'm scared what this thing will do in a career mode. I really, really am. Close. Close. I don't know. I think I like it a little more than the beer can, but it's still... It's ridiculous. Action groups to arm shoots. That would have been cool. It will do the best Mars mission since Lee Bowman's official reprimand at the astronaut office. I mean, they came home, right? Can we be that mad? He brought them home. Alright, come on, retrograde. Whoa, buddy. I was hitting the wrong button. Why do I feel like some thrusters just aren't really chipping in here? Wait, the small safety bubbles have lights? Do they? Lights on? Hey, those are bright. Small safety bubbles. I think you're talking about the inflatable ones? I don't know. Wait, what? Yeah, I'm out of MMH, which means these thrusters were doing way more work than I thought they would. We're going to need another set up here, at least. Probably way even more than that. One little swig of whiskey left. We'll save that for when this thing inevitably explodes. U is not the lights button, because I'm pressing U and nothing. Well, oh yeah, no, that is happening. I think that's for spotlights. It doesn't do for the interior lights. Lights on, lights off. Lights on, lights off. Unfortunately. Alright, let's claim an orientation so that maybe we can actually have some hope of doing a lifting body reentry. I don't think we can, though. I think these thrusters are not going to be near enough. Okay, so if we add that to action groups, we can use that key for which to do it. Okay, good. Those are empty. You have only life support. Should have added more. Should have added fuel to that also. But I guess all of our fuel is as low as it can be. Except this tank is lower and completely full. Yeah, there we go. That's fine. Everything is fine. Except I'm really dumb. We're facing prograde. Oh boy. So dumb. I guess subliminally I just really wanted it to fail. I mean, I like it better than the beer can, but I'm just not sure it's a viable concept. And I feel bad for have wasted so many weeks working on it. I told you it's bionic design. The beer can was bigger Perseus, one we worked on 2 weeks ago. We took a very brief look at it last week at the end of the stream with the new robotic hingey things. Also, waste your time in testing, not flight. Indeed. Why are you being so... Oh, I guess we don't have any roll control, do we? Oops. Oh, good job. Yeah, this is what happens when you rush build stuff. And don't use part mods. It was the one with the weird clipped fuel tank offset up to the top. Yeah, it's fine. This is fine. Just add canards. Where are we? In the ocean. Bummer, our landing. Well, this thing's so heavy that it'll probably just impact the dirt at orbital velocity because our periapsis is way too low. We'll see how well that works out for us. We also can see if the engines tear off at transonic range. That'll be a fun test. So let's bring up our heat shield info. We can lock that down there. Just taking a nice leisurely barbecue roll. There'll be no measures taken to keep the G loading off the crew because the periapsis is too low and we don't have roll control. 68 kilometers. This is going to get spicy. Probably bring it out of physics warp. 60 kilometers. Well, if there's anything that was going to overheat and explode, these are the conditions that might make it happen. And crew will just turn into liquid, which is acceptable. Entirely acceptable. Added canards to your flyback booster and was all happy with that it flies well, and realized that the interstate should go where the canards are. Wookie, how do you have those numbers memorized? I know the line. Shut them all down. All the trash compactors on the detention level? $50 kilometers, still falling. Hey, we're only at, what, 2G? It's not bad. If you're still interested in having a separate... I have an idea. Having a separate... Separate what? Oh, a separate hab? I mean, yeah, sure, post it in Discord, I'll take a look, definitely. Okay, 9G. 31 kilometers and still 3 kilometers per second. This is gonna get close. Okay, well, looks like we tapered off our G-load. Just remember, Pulsey, the crew section needs to bring back 6 crew. Not just the 3. Damn it, nothing exploded. Could use some movable lead ball ballast. Could indeed. Surface thrust to weight ratio is only a paltry 0.26. Holy TWR, Batman. I don't think that's us. I think that's drag. Yeah. Sea level thrust is .26. So yeah, now that we've slowed down a whole lot, our rate of deceleration is a lot less. A whale is fine too. Biggest Perseus is obviously a pot of tulips. Hey, parachutes! Are y'all still stowed? Yep. That's going to be a problem. First round of drogues are out. Actually, those are our only drogues. And in full deploy. That is a lot of deceleration. How did those not snap? Yeah, the panels are still stowed, apparently. Which is typically a bug that's fixed by switching to a different vessel and switching back, and I was hoping that switching to an astronaut on EVA would meet those requirements, and it did not. So, you know, that's a thing. Attach them someplace else. They won't break off until Earth entry, so it's fine. Yeah, we might just tuck them down here somewhere. They don't necessarily need to be stowed, although it was just an interesting design choice given the option. Okay. Under drogues, we're decelerating at, or falling at 13.2 meters per second, which is really not that bad. I think the landing legs can take that. Success is your only option. Fair enough. But will they break off during Mars or Venus Aero capture? Although, really, with the Delta V figures, I think... What? Okay, did the shoot... Yeah, the drogues auto-cut, and then our primary is deployed. But man, did we pick up some speed in that. Okay, I stopped paying attention. Yeah. That worked well. I think that can be saved with some changes to the parachutes. Honestly, that 500-meter deploy was a really stupid idea. Cut and release higher up. Good ending. Yeah, glad that we could get something to go wrong with this ridiculous machine. I still don't understand exactly how it works, or why it works so well, but here we are. Oh boy. Guess we'll give it some adjustments to the parachutes, maybe another round of testing, something to flesh it out a little better. Hey, and no one died, so no one died. Alright, well, unfortunately, I am all out of time, so that was a real good place to end this thing. Yeah, 1 minute 53 left on the simulation. Look at me estimating time real well. That worked out. So that is going to do it for this episode, everyone. Thank you so much for hanging out. I really do appreciate it, and I will see all of you in the next one. So until then, see you later.